Rainbow groaned as she rubbed her stomach.
Wow, that was some meal. I ain't never ate so much dang food before,
Applejack mumbled from the floor.
I bet I done ate enough food to feed the whole Apple clan all by myself.
So, I take it every pony enjoyed themselves? Tick-Tock grinned as she finished off the last bite of her own meal.
I must say, Lady Cookie Dough, this is some of the finest confectionery I've ever had the pleasure of eating. I know that sounded really hoity-toity, but your food's quality deserves it. And what's wrong with sounding hoity-toity, darling?
Rarity laughed, feigned offense.
She is right, you know. This food has been absolutely astounding. So many flavors, so many varieties and styles, and the presentation and volume of it were all just wonderful. I've never been to this fine establishment before, but I must say that this surely must be your finest work yet. You're all too kind,
Cookie Dough smiled with a blush.
Though I wish your other friends had more to comment upon than just the quantity. Pshaw!
Pinky chuckled as she cleaned off a fifth plate with her tongue.
As a connoisseur of confectionaries and treats and sweets of every kind imaginable, I'm going to go ahead and give this place...
She held her hoof up in a display of triumph.
My Pinkie Pie seal of approval. 6 stars, grade A++, 110%.
She then coughed into her hoof and pulled a monocle from her mane, which she attached firmly to her left eye before nodding her head and speaking again, her voice suddenly much more refined.
As dear Lady Rarity so keenly observed, the presentation alone was worth the trip. Easily the finest I've ever seen at an establishment of this persuasion, and trust me, I've been to my fair share of high-class, ritzy restaurants myself. The service was incredible. We were never left waiting for our next plate. Our every request was met, and the staff was clean, polite, and friendly. The decor was also quite attractive, and elicited a feel of being surrounded by freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. And there were plenty of those included in the food selection as well.
Ignoring the collective set of dropped jaws around the table, Pinkie Pie continued.
And that brings me, of course, to the food. I'm not much used to duller brands myself, and after my first few experiences with the stuff, I was of the assumption that they were nothing more than nutritional supplements, not designed with flavor in mind at all, and barely even for nutrition at that. Buns and stuff proved me wrong. The incredible amount of skill that must have gone into making these duller products all taste like real food, and even look like real food, astounds me to no end. I thought duller green only tasted like soggy green beans, but here they've made it taste like peas, broccoli, cucumbers, and every other green food I can think of. Amazing!
Pinky turned to Cookie Dough and asked excitedly,
How do you do it?
Cookie shook off her stupor for a second to appreciate the compliment, eager to talk about her talent.
Well, the trick is that duller products have a very delicate flavor to them, and that flavor is reflected entirely in the environment they are stored in. We have an underground storage facility that houses scores of duller products of every color and varying conditions, allowing them to develop particular flavors. Kind of like a farm, it sounds like,
Twilight observed.
Metaphorically speaking, of course. Humph. Ain't like any farm I ever heard of,
Applejack snorted.
Meteorically or no.
Twilight clarified herself with a cough.
Well, not like a farm, but I remember when I was living in Canterlot. Once every now and again, Princess Celestia and I would take a tour of the rock caverns on the mountainside to study geology and gem-based magics. In the cave lived a farmer she called Monsieur Le Oink. He was a pig, and he grew truffles in the cavern there, like you would grow carrots. They have a kind of nutty taste to them. They're a delicacy in most parts of Equestria,
Rarity explained further.
Well, I suppose.
Applejack shrugged.
The fact is,
Pinky continued, dropping her high-class voice at last,
that everything tastes real even when I knew it wasn't. You almost fooled my tummy into thinking I was eating the real thing. The carrots taste like carrots. The sweet potatoes taste like sweet potatoes. The snozberries taste like snozberries. The only thing we can't replicate the flavors of are magical foods,
Cookie explained with a sad shrug.
and some of those are ridiculously hard to grow or come by, even for us. Magma berries are one of the few things we can come by easily, but I'm afraid we're fresh out.
Applejack scratched her head and frowned for a moment when she remembered she could do so without taking off her hat.
Well now, shoot, I just realized something. I didn't taste no apples in this here feast of yours. Everything under the sun was here, even if I could barely taste it with all the mixing of flavors I was doing. So where's the apples?
Pinkie Pie pointed at Applejack in acknowledgement.
Yeah, hey, you're right, AJ. I didn't taste any apples either. What gives?
Cookie gave them both an awkward look, and turned to Briarthorn, who shrugged, equally blank. At last she asked,
What's an apple?
Applejack turned white.
You don't know what an apple is?
Flathoof tapped his chin. Huh. I thought if any pony would know what the hay and apple was, it would be these folks here at Hope's Point. They know all about the food grown in Utopia, and a lot more than I do. I was hoping to get a chance to try one. You girls make them sound delicious with all the talk about 'em. Applejack pointed worriedly at her flank, and gesturing for Flathoof to look where she was pointing.
These here are apples.
Flathoof turned pink and muttered, Oh, right. Nope, I've never seen one of those before. First time I've ever seen one, in fact. Briarthorn immediately stared with all the professional scrutiny he could muster. A red fruit of some kind, right, Southern Comfort? Sweet and tasty. Very round and pronounced, if I may.
I didn't ask you to look.
Applejack flustered, scooting her chair back in under the table. Merely a botanical observation, my dear. Nothing more, nothing more. Briarthorn immediately leaned away, but Applejack saw the tiny grin on his face and scowled.
They don't have apples.
Applejack muttered.
Shoot. Now I know how Twa felt back when they told her they don't have no books here. They don't grow them down south either?
Twilight asked.
I swear I have no idea what you're talking about, dear.
Cookie Dough said, shaking her head.
If they grow it down south, we'd at least know about it. We'd be trying to copy its flavor after all. How do you know about 'em?
TikTok quickly responded. Oh, they're from a little sequestered part of the southern continent, see? Very remote. Doesn't get a lot of visitors. Certainly doesn't export any of its food. And they all have just the most bizarre accents there. Only Applejack herself is actually from Utopia. They ended up out here by, accident. Teleportation accident. Twilight here, the silly mare, is an accomplished mage, you see. Twilight nodded in agreement.
Oh, yes, right. Teleportation accident. I've gotten better at controlling it since then, but I don't trust trying to warp across the ocean. Once we get back to Utopia proper, I'll just whisk us all back home.
Briarthorn, munching placidly on a platter of smoked petunias, looked up from his plate at the clock hanging on the upper wall. The hands told him it was well into the evening. How about that? Just look at that time and how it's gone by. Well, girls and big guy, we better get to steppin'. We still got to get you all set up with rooms for the next week, and...
Wait, week?
TikTok blurted.
Who said anything about a week?
Briarthorn blinked a moment, then answered.
Well, you aren't really thinking you're just going to run and gun right away, wham bam, thank you ma'am. You're in the city, so you're clear on that, but there's...
He gave them a wry wince and a shrug.
You know, a line. She's the queen. Queens are important. I mean, ultimately, sure, no big deal, you've already got your appointment all set up, so we can get you going. Since Lockwood's my best buddy, I'll probably end up taking you all.
He wiggled his eyebrows.
All by my wonderful lonesome.
And suddenly he frowned.
No, I do need to get clearance from her, and well, that's gotta be something we deal with when we get to it. I'm not going to piss her off on that kind of serious stuff. If there's one thing she won't tolerate on whimsy, it's the city's well-being. And any kind of clearance to go on what would basically be a paramilitary transport operation, it wouldn't be my normal easy.
But you don't understand. We need to get to Utopia, and fast.
Twilight anxiously pointed out.
We're on an extremely strict timeline, and it's getting stricter by the day. We don't have that long. Why would you have a problem getting them passage quickly, Briarthorn? Didn't you say they were the Queen's honored...
Cookie's eyebrows snapped up, and she glared sharply at Briarthorn.
And that reminds me, Briarthorn, you said that Her Highness was coming here for this feast, and she still hasn't shown.
Briarthorn looked so apologetic, the cookie craned her neck back in surprise at its sincerity.
Well, I am afraid that it must have happened yet again. The Queen has so many things to do. Busy. You know how she is. It is a disappointment to me to such an extent that I hope my sorrow matches yours, Cookie. We both love our dear royal lady, but she is quite sadly, calendarly challenged. Does that sound about right? You know it wouldn't be the first time, Cookie.
Cookie huffed.
I suppose it wouldn't surprise me if she did. She does have a bad habit of it. Such a shame, too. I went through all that trouble to make sure this feast was perfect. Just for her. Oh, well.
She looked around at the others in the group while tapping her hoof to her chin.
But I digress. Didn't you say these maids were honored guests of Her Majesty?
Briarthorn chuckled lightly.
Oh, I did. And honored guests they are. But they've also been in the wastelands. You don't go through those things without leaving a clear trail, no matter who you are. We'd have to measure the collateral damage, and then suddenly I can ask for Her Highness's approval, but, well, quick passage? Maybe, after my dear friend Lockwood has been all fixed up and given a clean bill of health. The Queen needs convincing, but I appreciate your attention, Cookie. I'm touched, thrilled, enraptured, overjoyed.
Cookie's face brightened.
Lockwood? Lockwood's here? I never thought he'd leave that dismal city. Oh, where is that darling rapscallion? I still owe him a birthday present, the poor dear. And after all the hard work he did getting me those connections with the Dollar Company's master shipping clerk, business has boomed in the years since I upgraded my stock, you know.
Oh, so he says those connections were all him.
Briarthorn rolled his eyes nonchalantly.
Yes, my dear. Lockwood has finally taken a turn to Hope's Point.
He looked down, and some anxiety passed over his features.
But he's not looking like one of our better newcomers. When I saw him this afternoon, he looked like he was injured by something fierce out there. There are some true horrors in the lands that surround that terrible city.
Oh, dear!
Cookie exclaimed,
Oh, no, that simply will not do. He's at the medical ward, then? Oh my, I'm going to have to bring some of his favorite cookies to him, the poor dear.
I'm sure he'd appreciate that,
Barthorn said sincerely.
I'm sure he also appreciates you feeding all of his friends here.
Oh, is that why they're honored guests of Her Majesty? Well, it all makes sense now.
Cookie raised an eyebrow in confusion, then shook her head and calmly looked at the ponies around the table. Rarity, with a horribly mangled dress that barely even covered her anymore. Fluttershy, wearing what she recognized as one of Lockwood's jackets that was dirty, torn, and burned, with nothing underneath. Applejack, with a singed, ripped shirt. Rainbow, with a jacket riddled with tears and water damage, and broken goggles to boot. Flathoof, with a baggy, torn t-shirt. Tick-Tock, with a worn sweater vest, a shirt missing a sleeve, and half a bow tie. Twilight, with a sequined vest missing almost all of its luster, and riddled with holes. Only Pinkie Pie seemed to have an outfit in good condition, as if it were brand new. Then again, it was armor. With an audible hint of distaste in her voice, Cookie observed,
I know it's not my place to pry, but they certainly look like they could use more than a hot meal and a place to rest, if you don't mind me saying.
Briarthorn tilted his head and hummed loudly, looking out at the mares and Flathoof. His mouth curled up into what now was a familiar smile. This time, though, his eyes lit up too, and he about-faced to Cookie Dough and pat her hoof reassuringly.
Oh, I know, Cookie, I know, these poor mares and stallion. They have just had the most terrible experiences, like any of us would if we went out in the wastelands for just a short yet painfully long week. Her Highness naturally wants her honored guests to feel at home here, and after dinner we'd planned on getting them all lavished up. So, if they would all follow me, he said with a wing flap, so that when they do get their audience with her, the Queen wouldn't have much room to be disappointed by them.
Under his breath he muttered,
She'd probably save it all for me, I think.
Again he brought his voice back to normal.
She is wonderful, our Queen. Such a kind and generous hostess. But alas, just as she forgot to come to dinner, she forgot to leave me with the proper address for exactly as to where we would get them some new, more suitable apparel for their introduction.
He dropped a smile as he looked into the restaurateur's eyes, his own positively sparkling in return, with such sincerity that she had to double-take to make sure she was seeing what she thought she was seeing. Rarity, Rainbow, and Applejack all watched with interest, as suddenly Briarthorn's voice and actions became astonishingly polite and charming without a hint of ulterior motives.
I hope after working so hard with your amazing talent, Cookie Dough, Peach, dear sugar, you would forgive me for asking a final favor in the location of such a place that might have fresh clothing for our guests.
Barthorn added a small wink.
I'll make sure the Queen hears how much you've helped.
Cookie shook the red from her cheeks and looked carefully up to the ceiling in order to consider what she was just actually asked. She thoughtfully tapped her chin again, then lifted a hoof as an idea struck.
I know just the place. A few of my more upper-crust customers from Utopia and the like have been talking about this little boutique a few blocks away from here. They say it looks like just a little hole in the wall, but the owner is absolutely astounding.
Briarthorn blinked, intrigued.
I think I know just the shop you're talking about, but I hadn't heard of him getting broader clientele. You're sure the ponies who recommended him were the most upper of the crust?
Cookie went on.
I have no reason to doubt them. They did seem very well dressed, and more importantly, they tipped with wild abandon. Supposedly he makes custom outfits. Oh, that sounds simply marvelous,
Rarity cooed.
Oh, I would just love to get myself some new clothes. This poor remnant of a dress just will not do any longer. Mr. Brythorn,
Rarity said with a sweet smile, fluttering her eyelashes.
Could we please visit this delightful little boutique?
Brythorn's lips pursed. He restrained another smile, actually amused at Rarity's sudden reciprocation of flattery. He turned to her and bowed deeply, a gentle cult in every way. Lady Rarity, it would be my honor, no, my pleasure. His lips wriggled, trying to hold himself back, but finally he added, in so many ways. With his facade split, he wiggled his eyebrows at her, and gave her little waves with his wingtips before tightly pulling them back to his sides. Now that we've got ourselves a new goal, we've got to keep up our energy. Don't stay belly-tired on me, folks. Make that food work. Let's head on over there. Get you all some newfangled clothier ensembles. Now I've got to be clear on this, Cookie. What's the name of this shop you're hearing tossed around?
Oh, I believe it was a romantique name,
Cookie said thoughtfully.
La Boutique de Miracles, perhaps.
Briarthorn blinked in mild surprise, then nodded. Sounds fancy, but that language usually does. Yes, that is definitely the shop I was thinking about. Guess he really is moving up in the world. How about that?
Well, I suppose we do need some new duds,
Applejack said warily, earning her a raised eyebrow from Briarthorn.
I don't know if I feel right getting all gussied up, though. Oh, I'm sure this shop has a great deal of selection,
Rarity assured.
The name is romantique, after all. If my own carousel boutique is any indication, then this little shop should have quite a display. Personally, I don't need new clothes, but I do agree that something needs to be done about our sorry state,
TikTok noted.
Surely this tailor can repair my own. I'm rather attached to this old set after all.
Regardless of who needs what and how, well, we need our where and when right now. And to me, in my very humble and unregarded opinion, all of you absolutely need to get prettied up for.
Briarthorn waved his hooves grandly again.
Her Highness. It just wouldn't sit with her to see all of you so tangled. For her to see you looking like there was a fight between two mama gargantuans, and you got stepped on for a half second just short of your bones breaking. Come along, ladies and the hench dude. We're going shopping.
He looked at Applejack and grinned.
Duds shopping. Thanks again, Cookie.
You're very welcome, Brythorn. Don't be a stranger around here, okay?
Cookie waved at him freely for a moment before she rolled her eyes and murmured,
As long as you pay your dues on time.
Briarthorn only winked.
Don't be a stranger? Aren't you married, Cookie? You do look like the jealous type. And I don't think your hubby's into 3.
Cookie smiled wryly at him and started pushing him towards the door.
Go on, get out of here and give Her Majesty my regards.
Briarthorn happily led the gaggle of mares and Flathoof out of Buns and Stuff and down the street. In the meantime, all they could talk about was how good they felt now that they'd had something to eat. This especially included Twilight, whose magic was beginning to slowly return to her, as she demonstrated by using it to lift random objects off the ground as they walked, and manipulated them. She started slow, with tiny pebbles that she flicked across the sidewalk, and moved up to litter that she helpfully picked up and placed delicately in trash cans. Briarthorn slowed his pace and deliberately settled himself in between Twilight and Tick-Tock, who had been walking side by side.
Hey, 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 look at how much better you're feeling, dear, he said with a broad smile in her direction. Always a nice thing to see the result of a little effort and kindness. Glad to help your recovery. And your good friend Tick-Tock here, she's just a peach, isn't she?
Sure, a peach. Tick-Tock dismissively rolled her eyes.
Oh, yes. I do appreciate what you're doing for us, Mr. Briarthorn.
Twilight smiled back.
Lockwood and his friends have all proven to be very polite and giving so far. It's quite a nice change from some of the other ponies we've met in the past couple of weeks. Yes, we've gone from malicious murderers to flamboyant flirts.
Tick-Tock sighed.
I suppose anything would be an improvement over having a group of ponies out to kill you. But I'm not sold on how much of an improvement it is.
Ouch, I can feel the sting in that one. The sublimely limey with a bob for me, right on timey. You're getting a little heartburn after that big old meal, are you, Miss Tick-Tock? I could fix up a heart problem for you, princess, but you already knew that, and already rejected it, right? Too smart for the showboater, naturally.
His eyebrows didn't so much wiggle this time as roll towards her, earning him another flat-lidded stare. He tilted his head and his smile and voice became small again.
Easy, relax. I promise I'm not going to just try to plant my front to your back. If I were going to do that, I'd have done it already. That should be just as easy for you to believe if all I am is a bad pony in your head.
His voice began to pick up again.
Just give me more time on the clock. A little face time, if you will. I'm very giving, and not just between the linens.
Smooth.
Tick-Tock actually said flatly for once. Tick-Tock's grudging look in the other direction seemed to satisfy Briarthorn, so he turned his head to the unicorn on his other side.
You hear any of that? Stick with me, Twilight. I'll show you how a real Hope's Point pony lives and enjoys their time.
I don't know how long we're going to be here, but that sounds like it would be great,
Twilight agreed.
I don't need magic to make a day, or more accurately, a night last forever.
Briarthorn winked shamelessly, flicking an ear but otherwise not reacting to Tick-Tock's exasperated face hoof.
After that kind of fun, you might find it harder to leave.
Well, I don't know what you could possibly have to do for fun around here that would make me think that.
Twilight laughed, completely oblivious.
But you certainly make it sound exciting. Is it like an amusement park or something?
Briarthorn, for the first time since they'd met him at the gate, almost stumbled. He almost tripped at Twilight's remark, but his wings, still tucked on his sides, flittered just a bit to keep him even. As he regained his walking pace, still even with the two unicorns, he stared at Twilight in open disbelief. Twilight blinked at him in concern. Tick-Tock went from barely tolerant to holding back laughter, breathing deeply with an effort at discipline. Briarthorn, on the other hoof, in hearing Tick-Tock's effort to resist, completely lost his composure and laughed so hard that Tick-Tock had to bite her lips to stop from joining in.
Oh, Twilight.
He flared his wings upward and splayed them out with a single sweeping beat of air and tucked them around the two unicorns. For a moment, Tick-Tock didn't even get angry because she could see he was barely walking straight from his laughter.
Twilight. You know what? I think your stay here has, no jokes about it, some real potential to be quite the interesting experience for you. Twilight, Twilight, Twilight. We'll talk about it more after we all get to the hotel. Hey, TikTok. You and I can get Twilight up to speed, can't we?
As his regular bravado switched back on, and with her position in his crosshairs renewed, TikTok took a large and disdainful look at the large wing tucked around her, and after inhaling sharply, the humor she'd enjoyed seconds ago was gone in a flash.
I'd rather just have a cup of tea and get some sleep.
Under her breath she added,
Frankly, I'd rather try to swim to Utopia.
His ears perked, and the slyest grin he'd yet delivered preceded his so far deepest, quietest tone drop, barely above a whisper in TikTok's ear.
Well then, misinterpret this for a while. Don't think I couldn't get you halfway there before you even needed to swim.
Preempting a hotly indignant reply, he said loudly,
And we're here!
Barthorn declared it like he was calling out the winners in a race, pulling his wings back up and over Twilight, and esteeming TikTok. They approached the boutique, marked by a hanging sign above the sidewalk.
I've always thought it was a nice little place. Flashy if you're looking for the battle scars.
Oh, thank goodness!
Rarity sighed contentedly as she started to walk towards the door.
It looks simply fabulous! Thank you oh so much for your assistance, Briarthorn. I'll ensure we all get the most exquisite outfits imaginable. Oh, I must get out of this ratty old thing and...
Briarthorn calmly but briskly moved between her and the door, stopping her with a raised wing.
Easy, just hang on a second now. Like I said to our dear Lady Cookie Dough, you're all going to be having an audience with the Queen once Lockwood is back in action. I simply can't and won't let you waltz in front of Her Majesty wearing just whatever clothes you managed to find on the rack. I apologize preemptively, but I'm going to have to make some judgments right alongside you.
Rarity briefly raised an eyebrow, then coughed into her hoof.
Briarthorn, darling, it is customary for the gentle colts to wait outside while the ladies handle their own clothes shopping. Besides, dear Flathoof needs clothes as well. Surely you should be helping him find some?
Don't leave me alone with him,
Flathoof interjected sincerely, making Briarthorn salute with his other wing.
What's the matter, Mr. Hench bloke? I'm certain this shop has plenty of stallion's wear as well,
Briarthorn said dismissively.
That's not what I meant,
Flathoof said haughtily.
I still don't get why we're going clothes shopping. Well, why I'm going clothes shopping. The girls' clothes are ripped and torn, and in Fluttershy's case, mostly gone. But my clothes are still in good condition. A little dirty, maybe, but...
Oh, don't be such a stick in the mud, Flathoof,
Rarity said with a pout.
Why, I'm sure there's something in there that would make you look just positively dashing. A broad fellow like you could really fill out a nice dress suit, I think.
I'm just more concerned using this vast amount of free time we seem to have to visit Lockwood and make sure he's okay,
Flathoof said firmly. Fluttershy spoke up.
Oh, yes. Actually, that sounds like a good idea. I'm terribly worried about him.
Briarthorn smiled and nodded.
Well now, then we've got to do something about that then, don't we? Worrying is for Watts, and we can't have you being Watts. Now, as far as I know, if we want to get you into a hotel that's, above 1 star, we don't really have time to go visit him in the medical ward. That's all located underground. We don't want to risk putting non-commercial. Or if you're Her Majesty, important structures, like a hospital above ground, in case of an emergency, and we do need to give you all new clothing if I'm going to rush you along to see the Queen. Now, I could assure you he's in the right hooves, but you're not going to be satisfied with that, and I don't blame you, so if you really want to double-check, just give me a second here.
He reached into a pocket and pulled out a small remote. He punched a button before replacing it, and then held the same hoof to his ear, clicking the device they'd seen him use before. They waited a moment until something on the other end caused Briarthorn to perk up.
Oh, hi, Dr. Sugarcane. How's it going? I'm glad to hear it. What? No, not this time. Do I sound like I've been drinking? Yes, a little. No. It was a feast at Buns and stuff, strictly social. It was piss water anyway. Look, this isn't about how much I've been drinking today. I sent a patient down to you this afternoon and... No, it's not a bar-fighting thing. You get angry about that every time I talk to you, and it only happened one time. Huh? Okay, twice. Tops. Oh, holy horse crapples. That one doesn't count. We weren't actually in the bar. Never made it in, even. Yeesh. Look, I just need a checkup on a friend of mine in there. Can you do that for me? Pretty please, sugar lumps. Well, fine, yes. I promise I'll come in more regularly for checkups, as long as you take your time. Huh? No, I won't promise you I'll drink less. Occupational hazard, you know that. Wait. Hey, come on. Here, look, please. Thank you. Geez, patient's name is Lockwood? I'm gonna put you on the video line, okay?
Briarthorn reached into one of his pockets and pulled out a small device resembling a tiny, flat television. He stretched a cord out of it and hooked it to his ear device. Instantly, the screen on the thing flickered to life and he showed it around to every pony. They all stared in curiosity at what they saw. A pink Pegasus mare with red streaks flowing through her tidy silver mane. Dr. Sugarcane wore a white lab coat and black horn-rimmed glasses. She hummed softly to herself while busily focusing on the datapad in front of her. The mare spoke, her voice silky smooth and as sweet as her name.
Patient's name is Lockwood, right? According to my data here, he's just been moved out of emergency room 1. It is stabilized in one of our diagnostics rooms. We've isolated the cause of his condition and are working to treat it now. And we should be able to have a more thorough report in a few hours after we run some tests. At first glance, my expert opinion on his condition is that we can treat it, but I'm not sure in what capacity yet. I'm afraid that's all I can do on such short notice. Sorry.
Can we see him?
Fluttershy asked with no small amount of worry.
I'm barely sorry now.
Sugarcane replied, shaking her head.
Until we've gotten him through all the motions and fixed him all up, I can't allow any visitors. Period. That includes you, Briarthorn. No funny business like this time. I'm not in the mood for any of your antics. Got it?
Oh, sugar, sweetheart, gumdrop, you wound me. I wouldn't dream of it,
Briarthorn said sweetly.
With my good dear friend depending on your marvelous medical magic to get better, I wouldn't dream of distracting you. Thanks for the update, Doc.
Yes, you remember our deal, Briarthorn,
Sugarcane said firmly.
While I do want to be better informed on your health, I don't want to see you down here again unless it's work-related.
The screen abruptly shut off. Barthorn disconnected it and returned it to his pockets.
See? While the doctor leaves me personally disappointed, Lockwood's peachy keen. Our mutual friend is in wonderful hooves. He'll be right as rain by morning. Does that sound about square?
I suppose if that's the best you can do, Flathoof said with a nod. I'd like to see him as soon as we can, though. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning. You take us there.
Oh, I'm still worried about him.
Fluttershy sniffed.
He sounds like he'll be fine, but it also sounds like it's still a serious problem. I'm certain he'll be fine, darling,
Rarity reassured her.
So far, these Hope's point types seem rather talented and resourceful. I have no doubt that the medical staff is just the same, and will have him in perfect condition in no time at all.
I'm glad we've got you at least a little impressed. Now then, back to closed business, and speaking of said business, Lady Rarity.
He declared her name like she won a reward.
It's not that you all won't be perfect on your own. I just have to be certain beyond a doubt that you get the outfits that would... What's the word I'm looking for here? Pacify, mollify, edify, enthrall, enrapture, expedite, accelerate, actuate, ameliorate. Ah, yes, ameliorate your audience with the Queen. Really impress her, I mean. Smooth things over.
I thought Starlight Shadow was bad,
Rarity whispered to Fluttershy. Fluttershy peeped back.
Well, at least I knew what all but one of those words mean. And now I know that one too. Ameliorate.
Barthorn continued.
I'm sure you're an expert in all things fashionable, Lady Rarity, but I know Her Majesty's, I think, tastes? Yeah, I'm going to say tastes is suitable here. I promise you I will be a valuable asset, without discussions on topics of impropriety.
His voice dropped.
Mostly.
It returned to normal as quickly as it had dropped.
I repeat, I don't for an instant doubt that you're supremely talented and can handle everything just fine on your own.
But I want to help you do the best you can, given the circumstances that find me as your chauffeur,
or say chaperone. You want to make a good impression, yeah? She is paying for it after all.
Rarity narrowed her eyes.
Yes, well, I suppose that you make a valid point. Very well. You and Mr. Flathoof may assist us. The traditions we're more familiar with would generally leave this sort of behavior to be reserved for ponies in a more intimate relationship. But I do agree that making a good impression on Her Highness would be in our best interests.
Good, great, wonderful, most excellent,
Briarthorn beamed.
Then, ladies and big guy, it's time for a fashion show.
Good.
Rarity smiled. Rainbow huffed.
Wonderful,
Applejack grumbled.
Most excellent!
Pinky air guitared. The mares and 2 stallions all entered the boutique, and even Rainbow and Applejack had to admit they were impressed at some of the displays. There were no actual dresses or suits or clothing of any kind to browse through, not at all like Carousel Boutique, but instead oversized photographs of ponies actually wearing fashions that they assumed had been designed by the owner adorned every inch of the walls. Rarity gleefully eyed a particular photograph of a svelte unicorn mare with a pink coat and orange mane, whose dress meshed astonishingly well and evoked a sense of the mare's personality, and talent in its fruit-themed shape and design. Rarity was impressed, to say the least. To their surprise, the group found the shop devoid of other customers entirely. The only pony in the building, a very bored-looking unicorn stallion, occupied a stool behind the counter, his attention entirely devoted to a small television quietly blaring tinny show tunes. He had a creamy white coat and a very trim figure, and he wore a hot pink collared shirt with a baby blue tie. His purple mane and tail were curled slightly with tinges of pink in them. At the sound of potential customers, he snapped his head up and briskly made his way around the counter to meet them.
"Well, hello," he greeted in a surprising baritone, "and welcome to La Boutique de Miracles. I am Haute Couture, owner and proprietor of this fine establishment. How may I be of service to you lovely mares and strapping stallions?" he added with an overly long look at Flat Hoof and Briarthorn, who stepped back and waved, respectively.
My, how polite.
Rarity smiled.
Hello there, Mr. Couture. I am Rarity, and these are my friends. And we are looking for some new clothes. As you can see, our current outfits are less than satisfactory.
"Oh, my dear, that's putting it mildly," the stallion declared in dismay. "You poor dears haven't been walking around this city like that, have you? Briarthorn, you should be ashamed. I thought you had better taste in—" Well now," Briarthorn cut in. "They were in the waste zone. At least 6 days with no food. As good as you are, they needed to eat first."
Oat was instantly mollified, but didn't change his tone of voice.
"You have such wonderful colors and such disastrous clothing. But you were in the wastelands. Of course you had to do what you had to do. What a silly question. Scandalous. Simply scandalous."
Any pony else think the stallion sounds a bit Rarity-ish?
Applejack whispered to Rainbow and Pinky.
Oh, I figured I was seeing double,
Rainbow said, rolling her eyes.
Great, there's 2 of them now.
"Please, allow me to assist you, poor dears, in getting some new fashions,"
Oat gleefully declared.
"You certainly are a colorful bunch. Such vibrant coats and manes. Please tell me it's all natural, darlings."
Oh, I assure you, my good sir, everything you see here is 100% authentic.
Rarity laughed.
I wouldn't be caught dead dyeing my coat or mane unless there was some sort of style that was all the rage at the moment that required such an act. But that's beside the point. We do appreciate your assistance in this. If I may volunteer to go first. I am a fashion designer myself, you know. I'd love to share some opinions with you while we work, if I may. To hear your mindset on making some of these wonderful designs in these photos here, of course.
"Heavens, that sounds exciting," he exclaimed. "It's so rare that I get a chance to discuss my own talent rather than just obeying my customers' every whim. Come along then, dear. When I'm through with you, your friends here will be leaping at the opportunity to be next in line."
I doubt she can impress me enough to jump at the chance to get all gussied up.
Applejack chuckled.
No offense, mister, but this here ain't my thing. To be honest, I'd just as soon as you just fixed up the duds I'm wearing and save yourself the time.
"We'll see about that, my dear."
The stallion laughed, not at all offended.
"Even if I don't manage to impress you enough, And I know there are ponies out there that don't have 1 ounce of taste for fashion. I can at least take your current duds and improve them with a few additions here and there.
Rarity coughed.
If you're through interrupting, Applejack, I'd like to have my turn.
Right, go on ahead, Rarity, Applejack said, rolling her eyes. Sorry to interrupt your fashion show.
Oh, but Rarity,
Fluttershy peeped.
isn't this a bit forward of you?
Rarity blinked.
Forward? Whatever do you mean, darling?
Fluttershy nervously flustered.
Well, I mean, what with the whole naked thing and...
Briarthorn and Oat both snickered, and the fashion stallion tooted.
Oh my, darling, I don't think you have to worry about me trying to take advantage of your friend here.
Rarity smiled lightly.
Trust me, Fluttershy, I'm in safe hooves here.
Oat eagerly escorted Rarity past the counter and into the fitting room behind it. The others, in the meantime, busied themselves with taking looks around the room to try and see what it was that had Rarity so impressed. Aside from Briarthorn's endless anecdotes, only Fluttershy really seemed to appreciate any of the fashion for what it was, but she admitted that Rarity saw things differently than she did, and by a rather wide margin at that. What seemed like an hour passed before they heard hoof steps coming from the back, and they all gathered together, actually finding themselves eager to see what sort of outfit Rarity had gotten.
Wow,
Fluttershy said quietly as Rarity stepped out.
Pretty!
Pinky cooed.
Holy cow,
Applejack muttered.
Dang, Rarity, you look real fancy.
Rarity gave a light-hearted laugh and brushed her mane back again with a brush Oat had lent her.
Oh, I know, girls. Isn't it just the most divine thing you've ever seen?
Rarity strutted around the counter and brazenly showed off her new outfit with all the subtlety of a bull in a china shop. It was elegant in appearance, the height of fashionable display, but at the same time very simple in its execution. A long, flowing, faux ermine cape made up the majority of the ensemble. The synthetic fur was the purest white, speckled with gem dust, purples, and blues that caught the light of the room perfectly and shined like real gemstones. The cape itself was a vivid royal purple and made of a silky material that draped across Rarity's figure like a second skin. Their attention was then drawn to her head, where her horn rested upon a shiny silver tiara decorated with sparkling rubies. She looked every bit the perfect picture of a lady. Twilight brightened and pointed her hoof at Rarity in delight.
Oh, Rarity, that outfit. Don't tell me you were inspired by your costume at last year's Hearts-Warming Eve. You certainly took it up a notch, if you were.
Rarity smiled brightly and swooped over to Twilight.
Oh, so you recognize it, Twilight. Normally I would have never dared to try to recreate Princess Platinum's famous royal ceremonial wear. It's much too warm and showy for day-to-day wear, and instantly recognizable enough that I could never wear it to an actual engagement without fear of being called out for wearing a costume. But here, it's a unique outfit, and is perfectly tailored to me, is it not? I always thought you were perfectly suited to play Princess Platinum, Rarity.
Fluttershy smiled.
It certainly is. Nice.
Rarity playfully bopped Briarthorn, who was in a daze as he looked at her, on the nose.
Well, Briarthorn, now do you believe that I'm more than capable of picking out some outfits for my friends and I that will impress your queen?
Briarthorn hummed in thought and circled around her, examining her new outfit with utmost scrutiny. He did not shy away from using his wings to lift the cape in areas to feel the fabric, an action that earned looks of disapproval from her. After 3 complete circles, he clapped his wings together over his head.
This was a close one, I'm afraid. But in the end, I think it'll be acceptable.
he said seriously.
Acceptable?
Rarity balked, and Oat put his hooves on the counter, visibly resisting the urge to faint. He gave her a half-lidded smile.
Rarity, believe me when I say this to you. Most people just don't know Her Majesty's tastes as well as I do. I think she'd like it, but I can't say for certain that she's going to be blown away or anything. Hey, whoa, okay, oh, madam, both of you, stop looking at me like that. It's not that I don't like it.
Rarity and Oat further narrowed their eyes in incredulous disbelief, perfectly in tune with one another as the Pegasus went on, flapping his wings periodically as if he were angry, his face utterly serious.
Me, the bombastic Pegasus, who has done nothing but compliment your figure before you went and did what you could to correct your solitary fault, which I remind you was not from you, but your many ordeals and trials, the irritating grandstander and all but outright accused back-jumper who is me. I think it's incredible, gorgeous, beautiful, fantastic, and so many other words that rive at the crown jewel of descriptors, perfection. It's you, essentially exemplified and refined to such a point of beauty that you could wear it for years, and not for one micro-half instant of any of the time spent wouldn't have ponies within jaw-dropping distance suddenly gaining appropriately unhinged faces. I outright can't think of a more lovely mare to be wearing something so stunning.
Rarity's face and the tips of her ears began to tinge red as he went on, and simply flustered as she turned back to her friends. Hopefully out of his earshot, she whispered to those that could hear her.
I can't tell if he's a gentle colt or lout at times. He mixes up the mannerisms so indiscriminately. Lout all the way,
Rainbow hissed quietly.
Oh, don't be so hard on him, Rainbow,
Pinky whispered, nudging Rainbow's ribs.
He's funny, and he knows how to have a good time. He's like a male version of me, only a big gold Pegasus. Pinky, if you were anything like he is,
Rainbow started. She realized she couldn't really come up with a good comparison, and hung her head in shame.
Okay, but at least you're not that bad. Bad? What?
Pinky blinked, causing Briarthorn to raise an eyebrow. Rarity coughed, quickly shifting the topic as she realized Briarthorn had heard everything.
Yes, well, I do think this is one of the finest outfits I've ever designed, with some help, of course.
Golly, and y'all just whipped that together in less than an hour?
Applejack whistled.
I ain't one for your fancy wear, Rarity, but heck, I admit I ain't never seen you work so fast.
I believe I owe that to our gracious tailor.
Rarity beamed, gesturing to the equally ecstatic unicorn behind her.
And his wonderful techno-magic, of course. Girls, you'll not believe the amazing feats his little machine back there is capable of. He made this wonderful outfit from scratch.
That sounds like a pretty fancy device, Tick-Tock hummed.
A marvel in techno-magic engineering.
Oat smiled broadly.
I had some help building it, of course, and the design is fairly common amongst the other fashion shops around the city, but I am the original designer. I can do things with it that would astound even the most disinterested pony in the world. So, who's next?
Twilight stepped forward first.
I'd like to have a look if I could. All this techno-magic really fascinates me, and I'd love a chance to really interact with someone on a personal level like this.
Certainly.
Oat smiled with a bow.
Come along then, miss, and we'll have you in new clothes in no time at all. Rarity, you said you'd like to assist me?
Yes, of course.
Rarity nodded eagerly.
I only wish I could have one of these back in my boutique. To be able to instantly put what's in my imagination into form would be astounding. I'd miss the sensation of some of the finer points of designing outfits, of course, but, well, this just seems so fun. Come on, Twilight. Let's make you look every bit the pony you are on the inside.
The 3 unicorns headed into the back room, and returned in much less time than before. Rarity eagerly pulled Twilight to the center of the showroom to put her on display, both of them quite proud of the new outfit they'd chosen. Twilight was no longer in a sequined vest, but a cloak that flowed just past her tail and covered most of her torso and flank. Upon her head she wore a pointed hat, tall and thin. They were both a bright royal blue with complicated cosmic-themed designs, with almost photographic quality images of galaxies, stars, and planets. The final touch was a gem at the collar of her cloak, an authentic meteor shard, a magical gem colored a pinkish purple that Twilight knew was a great aid in spellcasting, cut in the shape of her cutie mark. Briarthorn performed an examination of the outfit upon her just the same as he'd done for Rarity, and Rarity gave him the same sharp looks she'd given him earlier when he ran his wing along Twilight's cloak, then used said wing to pull Twilight into a hug.
Twilight, my dear, this is exact. This is completion. It is not Rarity, no. You are not merely a lady at the pinnacle of her beauty. This outfit is one that speaks of purpose. Your friends say you're quite the magician, and, well, this is not merely practical in conveying that point, but it makes it clear that you've uniformed yourself for the task of changing the world around us. Simply put, it really brings out the very rightly deserved magic in you, he proudly stated.
Oh, thank you, Briarthorn.
She smiled.
That's what it's supposed to do, so I guess that means it's working.
I'll say this, its hocus pocus has gotten to me as well,
he said, shamelessly tightening the hug.
I'll be so bold as to say, dear Twilight, that seeing you in this outfit has me positively...
He looked around the room briefly.
Wait for it. Spellbound.
Boo!
Rainbow called from across the room while simultaneously tossing an annoyed look at Pinkie. She could only give Rainbow an apologetic look through her giggling.
Oh, yes, it is certainly a great design,
Ode said from nearby with a beaming smile.
I normally wouldn't consider this acceptable walking clothing, but since you said they are to be worn in an audience with Her Majesty, I felt that perhaps a little extravagance was in order. Just be sure that if she asks where they got these wonderful outfits, she knows who made them for you.
Briarthorn smiled and patted the stallion on the shoulder with a hoof and a wing at the same time.
Oh, don't worry about that, my finely tuned and sharp-horned friend. Her Majesty, she'll be handling the bill on these. She'll see the location on her next credit report, but I'll still put in a good word for such a helpful stallion as yourself. Oh my,
Ode chuckled as he pat Briarthorn's hoof.
Maybe this means you're next in line? I'd love to get my hooves.
Briarthorn smiled apologetically.
Oh, my dear Mr. Coulter, I'm sorry, but if these girls, and dude, are leaving within the week, it'll be at least until then that I remake myself. But,
he said with a grin, and an eyebrow wiggle that caused a few of the other ponies to raise their own.
After this week, I might swing around back here. You'll have a gift for clothes, and the ponies that go with them, yeah? You've got the touch. You've got the power, if you know what I mean.
The unicorn's smile seemed a bit melancholy, but with a trickle of hope, he shrugged with theatrical dismay.
C'est la vie, such is life. While we wait our long week until our next engagement, let's get this show on the road, ladies. Who's next? Perhaps you, my armor-clad friend?
He asked, referring to Pinky. Pinky waved a hoof dismissively.
Sorry, but I'm gonna pass. I can change my outfit whenever I want, from a spell Twilight cast.
She gave a slow nod, plainly proud of her brilliant ruse. That was, until Twilight opened her mouth to speak.
Pinky, I...
Pinky snapped her head over to Twilight and just stared at her. Twilight stopped mid-sentence and awkwardly laughed.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened,
she said with a nervous nod.
Woo! It sure was a toughie.
Briarthorn blinked.
You'll have to make that happen a few times in front of the Queen, but I don't think she'd be offended with a shifting wardrobe.
Pinky nodded with a smile.
No problem. So I'd hate to make the Queen pay for a set of clothes I'm not going to wear, but... Ooh, I know who's going to be your next mayor.
She hastily pushed Rainbow Dash forward, causing the Pegasus to trip.
Dashy, you're up.
Rainbow Dash sputtered and tried to get out of it, but seeing Rarity's hopeful look and the wide grin on Pinky's face made her think better of it.
Fine,
she sighed.
Let's get this over with.
The two white unicorns ushered Rainbow along into the back, leaving the others to converse with Twilight more about her outfit and their own prospective choices. The trio returned from the back in far under an hour, and as before, Rarity ushered Rainbow to the center of the room to put her on display. Rainbow's old flight jacket had been replaced with a dark green faux sheepskin bomber jacket. The jacket had a hood, which Rainbow was flipping up and down over her head to get a feel for. It was simple but functional, offering her warmth through anything and thick enough to even cushion against small blows. Her old goggles had been repaired and sat upon her face, good as new. They had actually been improved, reinforced with stronger metal, and the lens looked much less fragile.
Oh, you look simply super! See, Dashy, you always dress in style.
Pinky bubbled.
No pony's cooler than you.
Dang right, Pinks.
Rainbow smiled. Briarthorn approached all on his own and gave her a once-over, purposely quick and not wasting any time at all to even attempt anything like he'd done with Twilight and Rarity. Rainbow raised an eyebrow in confusion at this, but let him continue.
Cool. Yes, definitely cool.
Briarthorn nodded.
I happen to be rather well versed in the nature of cool, and I can see you are too. Hints of radical all throughout. The hood, the padding, the goggles are almost as awesome as mine,
he said as he tugged at the goggles on his forehead.
And there's at least a margin of 20 to 30% of added levels of strictly cool in how the goggles and the jacket color contrast cleanly.
He locked eyes with Rainbow, and in that instant she and him forged an unexpected and unspoken connection in the layers of greatness. She shook her head, confusion visible on her face as Briarthorn concluded his spiel.
Right here. This is downright mathematical, algebraic even, in how you let your radicalness, awesomeness, and coolness mesh. Rarity, oh, you both let her colors work, and that's saying something for a girl actually named Rainbow. And hey, I know from personal experience that the Queen has a certain appreciation for this kind of look. I think she'll like you, Rainbow.
Rainbow blinked, still bewildered.
What? That's it? I mean, no comments about how you'd like to see me without the jacket or whatever? Or maybe you dig mares and hoods? Or something?
Briarthorn didn't smile at her, but his eyes did get the determined look they had earlier as they'd approached Buns and stuff.
Rainbow, there's a fine subtlety to being overly obvious. You're cool, Dash. You're cool to the core. And I know you know the precise quotient of your radical factor. Fine-tuned for action visible half a mile off. But you've got to work on your awesome. Dig mares and hoods. Pfft. What a thing to say.
Briarthorn clicked his tongue, tooting at her in disapproval, so plainly that Rainbow was doubly stunned, and with wide eyes quietly trotted back over to Pinky.
I have no idea what just happened,
she said simply. Pinky offered a hoof to bump in sympathy, which Rainbow immediately took, but her expression didn't change. Rarity leaned forward, catching Rainbow's attention. Because Rainbow didn't shift out of her stupefied expression, Rarity leaned forward just a bit more, and shrugged after a few moments for emphasis.
As I said, darling, utterly confusing. On one second, off the next. Simply impossible.
Okay. Who's next? How about you, dear?
Bode asks Fluttershy.
Oh,
Fluttershy peeped.
If it's all right with you, I'm not interested either. This jacket is all I need.
She pulled Lockwood's jacket tighter to her.
Oh, Fluttershy, darling.
Rarity smiled.
You certainly don't have to get rid of that. But something under it would be a good idea, don't you think? Besides, Lockwood, that poor dear, most likely won't be able to get new clothes any time soon. I'm sure you'd like for him to have his jacket on him when we go and see the Queen, wouldn't you?
Fluttershy thought a moment, then nodded.
I suppose I'd like it if he looked his best, yes. Okay, but I don't think I need anything fancy.
Fluttershy followed the two unicorns into the back, and as with the others returned nearly an hour later. Every pony had rather curious looks, as Fluttershy was in a rather unimpressive collection of clothes. Just a very simple sky-blue blouse, with an equally simple mint-green pleated skirt, that they were all glad had been made long enough this time that it covered her cutie mark completely. She was still wearing Lockwood's jacket, which was now not only completely clean, but she'd also had all of the residual damage repaired.
It's not too complicated,
Rarity explained.
She said she wanted something simple, so we gave her something simple. The poor dear is so attached to Lockwood's jacket that I think it's best her outfit works well with it, and it certainly does.
Briarthorn nodded wholeheartedly.
Simple and to the point, unassuming, the sort of softness that you can feel without touching, looking at the sky from the grass, or the grass from the sky, like a field in Utopia, birds and bees.
He held up one of his wings to cut off disapproving looks.
Flowers and trees.
He scanned across the room for a moment, skeptically.
I don't know what was about to rile you guys, but you can't just jump me for a rhyme, folks. I'm off point, though. Fluttershy, you're just the right kind of low-key, queen-grade audience. Acceptable. Who's next?
Oat asked eagerly. Applejack raised a hoof.
I'll just get this here dog and pony show over with. I don't want to go last. If y'all were able to just remake Dash's outfit and improve it, I think y'all could do the same for me, right? So let's just do this and move on.
Applejack joined the two unicorns, walked back with them, and returned all the same. As with Rainbow, her outfit had not really changed all that much, but it had improved. She still wore a red plaid work shirt, though this one was brand new and had more pockets. She also wore a pair of dark brown denim jeans that sat tight against her flank and legs.
You look like you're all set for the rodeo when it comes to town,
Rainbow chuckled.
And you look like you're ready for the next air show.
Applejack jabbed right back. Briarthorn jumped right back into full-blown observation mode. He barely lingered on her shirt, but he was definitely drawn to the form-fitting denim. He took a few steps away from Applejack, his eyes very clearly following the curve of her flank. Applejack snorted loudly.
You mind not staring so dang much, Flyboy?
He snapped his head up.
Very, very, very acceptable, little Miss Southern Comfort. Especially digging those jeans. Your figure fits your cutie mark. Apples must be amazing, because you are positively low to the flow in them apple-bottom jeans.
Picky guffled loudly at this, causing him to take yet another bow before continuing.
More to the point, though, you look like a hard-working girl, which the Queen appreciates, but I can't help feeling there's something off here. Your duds feel incomplete. This sort of outfitting, well, it needs some kind of hat, I'd say. It's making your working girl vary before or after. The Queen wouldn't mind that, but the hat would say your purpose was still going. Present tense.
Applejack's expression had soured when Briarthorn spent time sizing up her backside, and couldn't keep her voice from sounding harsh.
I ain't wearing no hat but my own, and as far as I know, my hat is lost forever. So that means ain't nothing going on my head till I get it back, and I don't care how I get it. You hear?
Briarthorn's frown of sympathy was open and sincere, and his eyes honestly looked watery for a moment.
Oh, you poor mare. A hat that's special to you, gone. I know what it's like to have sentimentality in what should be inert. To feel a piece of your soul sitting pretty where you attached it, head to hip and back, doesn't matter. Something like that really is irreplaceable. Believe me when I say you have my deepest condolences.
He added with a long, slow bow.
Knowing that the outfit will be forever denied, perfection is in itself a story the Queen would love, despite being aware that she couldn't love the story as much as you love whoever made you love your hat. In this specific and special case, Applejack, your duds can be nothing but perfect, even without it.
Applejack blinked. She walked back over to Rarity and whispered,
Well now, Rarity, I see what you meant.
I know, right?
Rarity whispered back.
Back and forth at a whim. I can't tell if he's serious or not.
Next,
Oat called brightly. TikTok and Flathoof looked at one another awkwardly, before TikTok rolled her eyes and stepped forward.
Okay. Here's the deal. This outfit? Yes, it's my outfit. I don't change it. I own 6 more just like it. It's all I wear. It's my uniform. I don't change out of it. I'm not getting a new outfit. I just need it fixed up. Can you do that for me?
Briarthorn spoke up, his solemnity drained and his cracked smile wide again.
Yep, there we go, TikTok. That would be Queen grade. It's a uniform. Uniforms are stories all by themselves. It's got my brand of approval, dear, and I'm fairly certain it will have Her Majesty's.
Briarthorn trotted over pleasantly to TikTok and Twilight, and attempted to fit himself between them again. TikTok immediately got up, and moved around both the Stallion and Twilight, sitting down and putting Twilight between them. Briarthorn's only reaction was to abruptly conclude his judgment.
Ah, well, acceptable, pretty simple. Your outfit suits you. Very posh.
TikTok blinked, curling her lip at Briarthorn.
Posh? Just what are you trying to say?
Briarthorn simply stretched and cracked his forelegs, one at a time, and said nothing more. TikTok's horn sparked.
Why, you...
Oat took this as a cue, and interrupted, frowning in mock hurt.
Oh, just a repair job, then, dear. That's fine. I can have that done in a jiffy, darling. thing. We'll do that last, though, for... we have one more pony who needs a new outfit.
Flathoof pointed at himself.
Well, you seem to have more in line for design and dresses, so... Oh, don't you worry. I make clothes for stallions, too.
Oat grinned.
Though I can't say I get specimens like yourself in here that often. This is my lucky day.
Flathoof muttered under his breath.
After I make sure that stupid idiot is alive, I'm going to kill him for leaving me alone with all this.
Come along, Flathoof.
Rarity beckoned.
We'll find something that suits you just fine. We'll make you look like the big, tough stallion you are.
I don't know, Rarity.
Rainbow sniggered.
You and tough are two words that don't mix together that well. Yeah, can y'all even do tough?
Applejack chuckled. Rarity's eyebrow twitched.
Oh, I'll have you know that I know plenty of fashion designs that elicit a sensation of what tough is. Come on, Mr. Courtier. We'll show them that we can handle making Flathoof look tough.
Oh my, I'm going to enjoy this.
Oat laughed. Flathoof nervously walked back with the two unicorns, and only a few minutes later, Rarity returned, followed by Oat. Flathoof was noticeably absent.
Well?
Rainbow asked.
Hmm?
Rarity blinked, looking behind her. She huffed and stuck her head through the curtain in the doorway.
Oh, come on, Flathoof. You look simply marvelous. You wanted to look like a rough and tumble stallion, and you certainly do.
I'm not coming out,
Flathoof cried.
I know you're not used to the customs around here, but this is not rough and tough. I tried to tell you. Oh, darling,
Oat called back.
You certainly look like you'd be able to give any pony who gave you lip a good once-over. If I may, I'd like to volunteer. Innuendos are not helping,
Flathoof yelled.
Come on,
Rarity snapped.
Mr. Courtier and I worked hard on that outfit, and I will not let you insult us by staying hidden back there like a little colt. You rejected the last 3, too, and I am not making any more designs.
A loud groan could be heard from behind the curtain, and moments later, Flathoof pushed his way out of the curtains. Immediately, the only two ponies that reacted were Briarthorn and Tick-Tock, who put their hooves to their mouths simultaneously and tried their hardest not to laugh outright, startling Twilight, who was left between the two shaking ponies. Pinkie took notice of this and began to feel a tingling feeling that made her start to smile, though she was unsure why just yet. Flathoof grumbled and came around the counter to the center of the room to display himself.
Well, you certainly do look pretty tough,
Rainbow observed. Briarthorn was shaking with silent laughter, and barely managed to say through an overly wide grin,
Really tough.
Yeah, tough.
Tick-Tock snickered.
Oat's right. He looks like he'd give some stallion a proper pounding. Hoo.
Tick-Tock, I swear to the stars.
Flathoof started.
I don't see what you two are laughing about,
Twilight said to the two ponies flanking her. Flathoof was dressed in only two things, a black denim biker's jacket and a black denim biker's hat. The jacket was one size too tight, enough that it fit perfectly, but so that it clung to his body and showed off his broad frame. To the ponies of Ponyville, it certainly looked tough. To Briarthorn and Tick-Tock, however, this same exact outfit meant something completely different. Briarthorn, still laughing, mustered his nerve and froze his face into a deathly serious stare, his voice dropping back to its normal slyness.
You look fantastic. I didn't notice it before, big guy, but man, you're ripped. Very hinch. Right, Tick-Tock?
Absolutely. Hinch. Very hinch. Tick-Tock snickered. Applejack, for the first time in over a week, found herself unable to take her eyes away.
Golly, Flathoof, you look, well, decent. Whoa, Nelly.
She wanted to avert her eyes, but couldn't. Things had changed since the last time she'd seen him like this.
Look, just get your little evaluation over, Briarthorn,
Flathoof snorted. He sighed to himself.
Damn it. Lockwood, I knew this was all you're doing.
Somehow you passed word around and called in a damn favor somewhere to make sure you made a fool of me. I swear when you get better I'm gonna kill you. Briarthorn didn't move for a moment. Then he slowly trotted over and began giving Flathoof a very slow and thorough looking over. Flathoof found himself extremely uncomfortable with the attention, because it seemed that Briarthorn was taking his time, just like he had with Rarity and Applejack. Haute Couture was giving him looks from nearby as well. Tick-Tock was giggling into her hooves harder by the second. As her laughing continued, Pinky started to giggle along with her.
Oh wow, I'm so sorry, Flathoof,
Pinky said in between laughs.
This laughing is really contagious. I'm not trying to be mean, really.
Flathoof merely grumbled in response. By now, Rarity had become visibly self-conscious. Her concern over the situation was rising by the second, as Tick-Tock and Briarthorn, and now Pinky too, continued to laugh. Flathoof, on the other hoof, was feeling more and more exposed by the second.
Now, baby, you're not going to like this, but I am serious when I say this outfit works for you.
Briarthorn smiled and let his eyes wander a bit, making Flathoof flinch.
I know it's a little unorthodox for such a big stallion like you, but trust me, you're gonna drive every pony wild with this thing. Oh, buddy, this is your best work yet. Brilliant. Oh my, I enjoy getting him into it.
Oat laughed an easy, friendly laugh that anyone could tell he was comfortable using.
A big, strong stallion like that deserves to be shown off. No sense in hiding that body behind baggy shirts. The Lady Rarity, she deserves as much credit, perhaps more of it than me. The basis of the theme came from her.
He waved a hoof at her with no small amount of flair, and she smiled, but something about Tick-Tock and Briarthorn's immediate response of even more laughter made her sweat. Briarthorn practically cackled aloud.
Oh man, this is amazing. You and Lockwood certainly are close, aren't you? And
he leaned his head up and down, melodramatically sizing Flathoof up.
I can see why. Did anyone else catch any suspicious activity?
Between Tick-Tock and Briarthorn's laughing, there was the tiniest squeak. Heads turned towards Fluttershy from where she sat against the wall of the boutique, her face turning red.
No, they're not,
She buried her face in her hooves.
Oh my.
Briarthorn gave a single great flap of his wings, and held a hoof to his ear.
I'm sorry, dear. What was that?
Fluttershy began to shake her head furiously, and as she did, her wings flared, stiffly lifting her back very slightly from the wall. This movement made her squeak louder, vaguely trying to speak words that were ultimately incomprehensible. This did not stop Briarthorn from providing running commentary. He gasped.
No, they did what? Oh my stars and garters! You what? You watched the scandal? Good thing we got Lockwood fixed up when we did. He only just barely landed himself a catch.
Fluttershy shook her head even faster. Tick-Tock could barely contain herself. She held a hoof to her mouth and pressed hard, speaking through it as she nodded to Briarthorn.
This is amazing. So, rich. I, had you all wrong, Briarthorn. You're all right.
Thank you, dear Tick-Tock,
Briarthorn said shortly, biting both lips together as Flathoof stomped angrily, almost shaking the entire room.
Oh, now I get it. You're Cutie Mark. You're into the kinky stuff, I take it? Nice cover story with that whole criminal thing. Oh boy. I told you, he and I are not like that,
Flathoof sputtered. Tick-Tock chortled.
Could have fooled me, mate. With that outfit, you too. Oh, tell me, which of you is the Nancy Colt in that little relationship?
Pinky seemed for a moment she might actually explode, filling up with sparkling pink light before leaning back and falling head over hooves. On her back, she laughed as hard as she could, kicking all four legs into the air with wild abandon, sending bright pink light streaking around the boutique. Rainbow watched in confusion, not quite sure what was making Pinky laugh so hard.
We are not like that,
Flathoof barked, his voice cracking as the pink lights shined into his eyes.
For fuck's sake, we're brothers!
The mares, except Fluttershy, all looked at him in surprise, making him turn brighter red.
Long story. Just leave it. I wouldn't even think of him like that.
Briarthorn took a deep breath and focused all his energy on not losing himself to a laughing fit.
Well, even if you're not with Lockwood, big guy, you've got to be with some nice colt. Look at all that steadily stallion stuffing. Smoked man muscle everywhere. Briarthorn, if you're trying to get a rise out of me,
Flathoof said, taking a deep breath and speaking as calmly as he could,
it's not gonna happen. So just get this all over with so I can rise out of you. Oh boy, I'm sure a few ponies here would love to see a part of you rise.
Briarthorn snickered.
Hey, Flathoof. What's your on-duty name? The job really lends itself to some great ones.
Ooh,
Pinky chimed in.
I got one. Butch deadlift.
Flathoof hung his head in dejection.
Here we go.
Briarthorn scratched his chin for a moment, then pointed at Pinky excitedly.
You, my good mare, are onto something. How about slab bulkhead?
Flint iron stag.
Pinky continued.
Big McLarge huge,
Briarthorn added. As they proceeded through their list, Tick-Tock actually began crying with laughter, hunched over in stitches.
Smash lamp jaw.
Buck plank chest.
Blast thick neck.
Briarthorn gave a great laugh.
There, see? Punch side iron. Damn, son. Some honey as slow steamed and hickory cured as you, thick Mick run fast, has to be tapping some nice, sweet little steely stally on the side. At least now Buff Drink Lots has an outfit that makes him look the part. Buff Drink Lots?
Flathoof said indignantly at Briarthorn.
Now you just wait a second.
Pinky cut Flathoof off with a giggle.
Finally, some pony new who gets my jokes. I tell you, Goldenrod, you ain't half bad.
She jumped into the air. Briarthorn unhesitatingly leapt up and flying high hoofed her.
Well, thank you, my well-informed pink friend. You aren't half bad yourself,
he added as they landed.
Okay, seriously, what's the big deal with this outfit?
Rainbow asked as she had begun to snicker and wonder at Pinky and Briarthorn's exchange. Tick-Tock pulled herself off the floor and leaned over to Rainbow. For a moment she held up a hoof in front of Rainbow's ear, but she was unable to even attempt to whisper. She just dropped her hoof to wipe away a tear and kept laughing.
Well.
She inhaled deeply and bonked herself on the nose. She took another deep breath and weakly murmured,
Around these parts, that's the sort of outfit that a male escort wears. I'm talking adult escort.
Rainbow raised an eyebrow, then her face brightened in realization.
Wait, you mean...
Please don't.
Flathoof pleaded with a long-suffering sigh.
It makes both Vanderhuge over here look like a very successful gigolo.
Briarthorn smirked. Rainbow gave a loud snort and fell back laughing, landing on her back next to Pinkie Pie. Tick-Tock fell back down as well, clasping her sides and wheezing loudly, completely out of breath. Twilight stood alone, calm and unfazed. She blinked and scratched her head in confusion.
What?
Rarity looked positively aghast. She clutched her head with both hooves.
That outfit makes him look like... What? Oh, sweet heavenly Celestia, gracious bringer of warmth and daylight, what have I done?
Fluttershy shuffled further into a corner, still squeaking as she shifted her body awkwardly around her rigid wings. She turned her face as far away from the rest of the group as best she could, and began gently and rhythmically tapping her forehead against the wall in embarrassment, in a Fluttershy-grade attempt to give herself a concussion. Applejack turned red as well, but unlike Fluttershy, did not avert her eyes in the least. Unfortunately, at that moment, Briarthorn pulled his head from the counter to wipe a tear away, and then his eyes went up, past Flathoof, to hers. The Earth Pony's eyes drifted not a millimeter up from where she had been staring at the Red Stallion's frame. Across the room, straight on, dead center, she'd been caught eyeing Flathoof's previously discussed impressive physique. The instant look of realization in Briarthorn's eyes scared her. He knew. Flathoof snapped his head around to Briarthorn.
Look, are we done here? I told you, you're not getting a rise out of me. I've been Lockwood's best friend for over a decade, and he's much better about these sort of things than you. I think. He's subtle. You're too flamboyant. I can see where all of this is going from a mile away. Nothing you could do would surprise me. Lockwood's subtle. I give you that, but... Nothing at all. Then I guess you've been expecting this,
Briarthorn said with a wicked grin. He moved, suddenly behind Flathoof. With his eyes nailed to Applejack's own, Briarthorn dramatically bit his lower lip and flicked out his wing at blinding speed at Flathoof's exposed rear. Wing and rump collided with an incredibly resonant, echoing smack. Flathoof jumped nearly half his height in panic surprise, and Briarthorn posed as though utterly shocked, shaking and cradling the offending wing in false pain.
Oh boy, Slade Slabrock, you could cut diamond with that ours.
Pinkie, Rainbow, and Tick-Tock, if they'd been reveling before, now began howling with laughter. By now, Twilight had also nervously joined in. Even if it was clear from the look on her face, she wasn't sure why it was all that funny. Rarity's eyes rolled back into her head as she promptly fainted. Fluttershy noticed just in time in between bumping her forehead on the wall and dove to catch the falling fashionista before she hit the floor. Pinkie was gasping, still actively radiating pink light. She heaved.
Too funny.
She panted.
I can't.
She wheezed.
I can't breathe.
She huffed.
Oh!
She heaved again.
Oh!
She heaved once more.
Oh!
She took a deep breath and sharply exhaled.
Oh! Oh! Butt smack!
She wheezed again.
Oh, wow, I'm so sorry, Flathoof, but...
Briarthorn rested his elbows on Flathoof's back. Flathoof, for his part, held one large hoof over his face to obscure his mortification. Briarthorn vocally addressed the group at large, but his eyes were still deadlocked on Applejack's.
Ladies. This is the part where, if you had bits, you'd be willing to spare. You'd be tucking them into bold Big Flank's hat over here, seeing as he doesn't have any pants. Any takers?
He added distinctly in Applejack's direction, who gulped heavily but otherwise remained red-faced and inert. Rainbow and Pinky were on the ground beside one another, giggling. Tick-Tock was wheezing, pulling herself up to lean on a wall heavily.
She
sputtered.
I can't remember.
She rolled her head around limply.
Anything like that in a long time. Oh, hell's bells.
Twilight had authoritatively and decisively asserted her confusion, and compassionately trotted over to see Rarity, whose head was propped up by Fluttershy's forehoofs. She kneeled down to Rarity's face. The white unicorn's eyes cracked open slowly.
Rarity, are you okay?
Twilight said with honest concern.
Fluttershy. Twilight.
Fluttershy stroked the fashionista's purple mane.
Rarity? Oh, Rarity, are you all right?
Rarity held up a hoof, and both Fluttershy and Twilight took it without question into their own.
Fluttershy. Twilight. Oh, Twilight. When Mr. Flathoof gets a better ensemble, yes? And out of those things, yes?
Rarity hissed.
Burn them!
Haute Couture had speedily magicked a number of paper fans out of his pockets, and was even now frantically fanning himself with them all at once. Slowly and softly he murmured,
Oh my.
Flathoof turned his head around and just stared at Briarthorn, still posed on the middle of the red stallion's side.
What in the hell is wrong with you? Just a second ago you're all over every mare in the room, and now you're smacking my ass? Seriously, what?
Another round of laughter erupted around the room. Briarthorn leaned over on Flathoof's back, smiling piteously at the red stallion, and said quietly,
Well, it's like this, roll fizzle beef. I'm not picky. I'm just perky. Ponies are ponies, have they?
He whispered the last part right into Flathoof's ear, and would not stop fluttering his eyelashes at Applejack. To Briarthorn's visible delight, she bore a look of utter dismay that showed through the occasional twitch of her right eye. Flathoof simply, on the other hoof, went from red to almost white. Then, as Briarthorn turned to walk away, Flathoof stopped him right in his tracks. He glared fiercely at the Pegasus, narrowing his eyes in anger.
Don't you just walk away from me like that after what you just pulled?
The room suddenly went quiet.
There's something wrong, Flathoof,
Briarthorn mused, repeatedly bugging his eyes out at the red stallion. Flathoof was about to speak when Rarity suddenly grabbed him by the collar of the jacket and started yanking him towards the back.
Come along, Flathoof,
she shouted.
We're going to fix this now, Mr. Couture.
Oh, such a shame,
Ode said with a shrug.
C'est la vie.
The trio was only in the back for a few minutes before they were right back out again, Rarity pushing Flathoof forcibly out of the back room, with Oat right behind them. Flathoof was now wearing a very plain, blue work shirt and a set of blue denim jeans that matched Applejack's.
"There,"
she said triumphantly.
"not a single one of you can laugh now."
Flathoof gave a deep sigh.
Took long enough.
Briarthorn wasted no time in stepping forward.
Now then, as I was saying earlier, is there a problem, Flathoof? Yup,
Flathoof replied with a shake of his head.
I just wanted to let you know that, personally, I prefer Gristle McThornbody.
The room remained deathly silent for just a moment, then exploded in raucous laughter. This time, Flathoof laughed right along with them. Briarthorn guffawed.
Okay, that was good. You're not all bad this, good. Like I said, I've been friends with Lockwood for too long not to know how to roll with the punches,
Flathoof said with a grin.
So are we all done here?
Briarthorn chuckled.
Like I said, I need to check and make sure your outfit is perfect. And I mean perfect. For the Queen. That last outfit of yours was great for you, maybe. But oh boy, if you showed up in the Queen's chambers wearing that, you'd be thrown out a specially picked window on sheer principle. The Queen is very strict about what comes in and out of everything she has anything to do with on a personal level. Wait, you mean you didn't approve of that outfit at all?
Flathoof muttered.
Oh, of course not,
Briarthorn said nonchalantly.
So then, all that, with the names and the...
Flathoof stuttered.
Just bucking with your head. That was really the gist of this whole fashion ordeal. Of course you needed out of that goofy thing. But additionally, of course, there was no way I was going to let an opportunity go by. I gotta say, though I am impressed, it took a long time to get you bothered, if not hot. That's some very impressive control, big guy. You're going to need that sort of thing.
Need what?
Rainbow blinked.
Control?
"Why in Equestria would we have trouble controlling ourselves?"
Twilight asked with a frown.
"I think we'll be fine. Sure, some of us might be a little rough around the edges, but—"
Look,
Briarthorn quietly interrupted her, and looked at the group with a sudden penetrating and deathly serious stare.
Look. Compared to me, I'm just a jerkass. The Queen will take a deep, long look into you, practically size up your entire life, pass judgment on you right then and there as a pony and living being, and she won't care if you feel bad when she does it. She presses buttons relentlessly, because when you're in charge of Hope's Point, it's like a monster. Or what? A machine? Yeah, that sounds about right. This whole city is like one big techno-magical monstrosity. Almost literally, maybe. Most part about this is, the Queen's got the keys in the ignition and the manual memorized, and she's not afraid to think back to any page, even the ones with the fine print and warranty options. She'll read you, too. That's no small warning. Brutally honest about who she does and doesn't like is putting it lightly. Nothing I could just say to any of you would explain how she gets into your head. We've been swimming in the shallow end of the pool tonight.
Well, so what if she doesn't like us?
Applejack huffed.
Ain't like any of us that have never dealt with any pony that didn't like us before now. We ain't bad ponies.
If she doesn't like you...
Briarthorn shook his head, visibly nervous for the first time since they'd met him, earning him several looks of surprise.
I sincerely hope she will, but if she doesn't, you'd better be capable of handling some abuse. Don't get me wrong. If you'd asked me to stop Flathoof, I'd drop it. I'd have been more than a little disappointed if we did, for several obvious reasons. Sex jokes aside, though, I'd be outright worried for you, which I believe I've made clear is for what. I've got a lot riding on the idea that all of you will be accepted by the Queen. Had to use her expense account again today, Savvy. I enjoyed it, naturally, but I'm going to have some explaining to do. Really, I did enjoy myself the whole time, despite being relatively sober with ponies I'd not had the pleasure of meeting until today. That's a bucking miracle. Well, maybe not. Lockwood's always been one to work on those. Today ended up being something else Mr. Ultra Nice Guy will get credit for once he's out of the medical ward. After all you guys have been through, maybe today wasn't as terrible for you either.
He wiggled his eyebrows, causing Flathoof to groan.
Hey, no hard feelings, yeah?
Flathoof rolled his eyes.
I suppose I should have guessed this kind of treatment from another friend of Lockwood's. I still say you've got nothing on him, though, understand? Apology accepted. Just keep your hooves off my ass, got it? Your ass. Flats. Can I call you Flats? No. Oh well. Let's be clear. Your truthfully sizable backside is just not the one I'm worried about right now.
Briarthorn exhaled, shakily, and chuckled.
Point is, hope that this all goes smoothly when we reach the throne.